This one guy I used to hang out with was obsessed with shit. Literally shit. If we walked past a public toilet, he'd say he needs to take a piss and he'll go in and look into the toilets for people's unflushed logs. If he finds anything, he takes a picture and shows everyone afterwards as if it was normal. Sometimes I'd even get a message from him that's just a picture of one of his own pieces of shit. Another user replies to that person saying, "I'm friends with a girl who had a disposable camera in her bathroom. When the roll was finished, she would develop the photos and post them on the bathroom wall in a shitty collage." Another person replies, "Sounds like a future art school graduate." To which she replies that actually, the woman became a stay-at-home mom. Ex-love interest is in prison for murder. We lived in different countries and I lost his number, so I found out by randomly Googling him years later. When I found that out, a memory was triggered. A few months after we stopped talking, I got a call in the middle of the night from the operator for a sheriff's office. This was before I had a cell phone and my home phone didn't glow in the dark, it was pitch black. I fumbled around with the buttons and accidentally disconnected the call. It was him. I'm not sure what he had to say to me, but I've toyed with writing to him but decided to veto it. So, his only call went to her, and she didn't answer it. I used to be best friends with a girl who told me that her dad would tie her down and rape her when she fucked up things. I found it strange because she never seemed emotionally distraught about it. Her dad was an extremely nice guy and she'd invite him to stay the weekend. Hell, I even stayed over sometimes when he was there. Well, one night, we drank a lot and did a lot of MDMA. The girl starts getting all, "You're my best friend, I love you, blah blah blah," then says, "I need to be honest with you about something." She proceeded to tell me that her father had never laid a hand on her other than supportively. I stopped talking to her once the MDMA wore off and I actually registered what she had said. Needless to say, to this day we don't talk anymore, and yes, I've heard insane rumors that she spread about me because I stopped talking to her. I only recently found out that the psycho molested my current girlfriend and that it was her that drugged the both of us and not this creepy dude that was at her house. Not a friend, but a longtime classmate. I learned just today that he was charged as an adult with sexual abuse of a minor. 2 counts of second-degree sexual offense and 2 counts of third-degree sexual offense. He was set with a $100,000 bond. He's 17 years old. The girl was 5. The scariest thing about this whole thing is that this kid would stare at me whenever I was in the room. He didn't even try to hide it. He would just give me this creepy look. This kid hit on me and asked me out several times, but I kept turning him down because I already had a boyfriend. I'm afraid that somehow the little girl was supposed to represent me. Maybe I'm overthinking this and he was just into little kids, but I can't help but wonder about it. The fact that I sat across from this guy for 7 years is just freaky. I went to camp with this kid who was always awesome as shit. Last year, he went crazy, stabbed the fuck out of his dad, a former governor, and killed himself. My friend fucked a grapefruit. My mother and I used to do plays at this playhouse when I was much younger. There was this one man who starred in all the shows and was honestly just the nicest, sweetest, coolest, and typical life-of-the-party guy you'd ever want to meet. During rehearsals, no one liked me going to the drinking fountain on my own, so he would always walk me there and joke with me when we were on our way. He was so great to my mom and I, and had even come to our house once or twice. A couple weeks after the play ended, my mom tells me that she was talking to the guy and he said that he could tutor me in some subject. I remember getting a strange feeling in my stomach and telling her that I didn't really want to. She wrote it off as me being lazy and it was forgotten about. About a year later, we see on the news that this guy's murdered 2 people, decapitating one of them and hiding one of the bodies in the theater. The feeling I got after finding that out was one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. You never really can be sure about a person. I had a friend who was into torturing animals, like cats he found in the streets or the odd dog or 2. He would chase the cats and strangle them and throw them around or hold them down and step on their tails. It was messed up, but weirdly, other than that, he was an overall nice guy. This guy I used to work with, I wouldn't say friend, but an acquaintance. He murdered his girlfriend and her 2 small children. He then took vacation time and chilled out in the apartment with a kid in the oven, one in the closet, and his girlfriend on the floor. For a fucking week. Just chilling with their decaying bodies. The worst part was the whole family worked there as well, and the guy's father never missed a day of work. He just acted like his son hadn't murdered 3 people. I found out a girl I was hanging out with had molested 2 kids when she was around 12. They were 8 or 9. She actually told me herself and used the word molested to describe her actions. She also dated a 15-year-old for a couple months when she was 19 or 20 until he dumped her. She went stalker on him, which caused her mother to call her a child molester and kick her out. I told her we couldn't be friends, and she started messaging me constantly and telling me that she was in love with me and that she knew I felt the same way. I told her, basically, to fuck off. And she started telling mutual friends that she'd eaten me out. Never happened. I'm 100% straight, and she's not an attractive person anyway. Long story short, I ignored her until eventually she went away. One of my very good friends in high school growing up was convicted of engaging in sexual acts with underage boys. What really makes this story so bad is that he was also a sheriff, and a pretty decorated one at that. Going to school together, there was always questions about whether or not he was gay, which never bothered me, but when I heard about the conviction, I was more than shocked. My roommate in college was a good friend of mine since high school, and was a really nice, gentle type of guy. 4 dudes lived in the house we rented, and we happened to get a Playboy subscription. No big deal there. Well, that particular roommate was going to move in with his then girlfriend. He moved 90% of his shit out, but had left a few things behind. My other roommate and I went into his room to see if he'd moved out the last of his shit. In his closet, we found a stack of Playboys. At first we were like, what the fuck? He's stealing our old shit. But looking at them closer, it turned out that he'd been having his own copies delivered to a P.O. box that he apparently had, and these Playboys were actually his. Okay, weird that he would do that, but no biggie. Maybe he just had this subscription before. But then, we see this duffel bag. In the duffel bag were 6 external hard drives. We were like, what the hell? So we each connected a couple of them to our own computers to see what was on them. Each one contained between 500 to 1,000 porn movies. This guy literally had a duffel bag with 5,000 pornos in it. To make matters worse, it was quite a bit of weird porn. Lots of rape stuff, some stuff with animals. There was some with really young people too, though we couldn't tell for sure if they were underage. It was just a gross, hidden thing about him. Not a friend, but my 60-year-old neighbor was in a serious and committed relationship with his dog. He's been caught with animal porn, and his son caught him screwing another dog, and he has his dog's paw tattooed on his arm. This guy also went to jail for molesting kids. Him and his son saw a 16-year-old girl walk down the street, and they said, "Darn, too young." And then the old guy says, "Darn, too old." Fucking creep. One of my best friend's ex-flatmates seemed like a really nice guy. He was a small ginger kid who was super polite and never caused any trouble. When he came to drink in my bar, I would give him a free beer occasionally. Fast forward a few years and I'm catching up with my friend and asked how he was getting along. Apparently, he was serving 6 years in prison for being a sex pest. What the hell is a sex pest? I asked. Apparently, he really wanted to be a serial rapist, but was too small and weak, so the victims were always able to fight him off. But that didn't stop him from attacking about 10 women. My friend was on vacation in Mexico and met a really cool, easygoing American guy. They hung out for a few days when one morning my friend awoke to guns pointed at his head from all different angles. He found out later that the American guy he was hanging out with was a serial killer. He'd killed his wife and 2 young children back home, and he was in Mexico trying to hide and enjoy life when he got caught by the police. In 10th grade, I stayed the night at my then best friend's house. In the morning, I asked to use the phone to make a call. He gave me his mother's cell phone. After my call, me being the nosy fucker that I was, I started looking through the videos on the phone. 3 videos in, I was horrified to see a video of my friend blowing his brother. His brother was about 4 years younger than us and was the one who recorded this. It was always apparent to me that he was straight and usually went for women outside of his family. I confronted him, not for blowing somebody, but for, blowing his brother. And he said that he didn't know why he did it, and that it just started when they were little and they just kept on doing it. I literally only saw the guy one time after that, and then he moved off the continent. During a eulogy at a funeral, I found out the person I'd attended said funeral with was a hooker, who was often so desperate for food and shelter that she would sleep with men in exchange for McDonald's burgers and a couch to sleep on. The worst part was I had lent her undergarments like underwear, stockings, and a bra for the funeral. After, I told her just to keep them. One of my friends owns a hotel in my mother's hometown. Really cool-ass guy. I always had him laughing, and he liked me a lot, and never let me pay for myself when I went out. Little did I know that there were many sex slaves held at that hotel that he and his father owned, and that he trafficked cocaine. I never ever knew this about him. I knew he did cocaine, but I didn't know that this guy was ballin' because he trafficked it, and in addition was involved in a big prostitution ring in a village just outside my town. I've been to that hotel many times myself for small weddings and other big celebrations, and I just didn't know. After learning this, I also learned why nobody ever fucked with him. He's an ugly, skinny-ass kid who liked to talk down on people, but nobody ever gave him shit, and I never knew why. It's because he has quite the connections with people who will hurt you, and also the police, who... There have been cops that went to the hotel and used prostitutes, and he used it as blackmail. It benefited me to be on his good side and be seen in public with him because people stopped bothering me, the tourist, quickly after. So in my group, we're the 3 amigos. Myself, another guy friend, and a girl. One night, we all slept over at our friend's house, the guy one, and when we finally fell asleep after playing Halo and eating cereal, weird combo, I know, I wake up in the early hours of the morning and see my friend masturbating on our girlfriend's face. After he finished, he fell asleep. We're still friends and she doesn't know to this day, but I give him shit for it. I had a friend who opened up to me about raping a girl he dated. He and I were 17 at the time and only saw each other on rare occasions. He moved around a lot, mostly due to being homeless for extended periods, and his parents were really abusive. He hated life, the world, and everyone in it. He was really obsessed with dark magic and shit. Weird guy, but he was always nice, and I let him over a lot when we were 15 or 16 when his parents got really nasty with him. It had been some time since we spoke, and he showed up to where I was living at the time, and we started making some food. I then began asking him how things had been since it had been a while. He started talking about his crazy ex. He began to tell me how he got back at his ex for stealing money from him and smashing up his stuff. He described how he basically tied her to a chair, beat her, and raped her. I became angry at him and told him that what he did was horrible and that what he did was rape. He looked at me in shock and terror and said, "No way, man, I was just teaching her a lesson. Besides, she told me she was into that kind of stuff." I told him later that her expressing her interest in roleplay doesn't give him the right to violate and rape a person, but he just sat down with a blank stare and was completely shocked. He didn't even realize the problem of what he'd done. He then just laughed it off and said, "Well, she was a crazy bitch anyway." Things got awkward after that, and he just kind of left a little while later. I was shocked and terrified at what this guy was capable of. I had no idea what to do or if he was even telling the truth or bullshitting. I didn't know where he was living, and I'd never met the girl either. After that, I didn't see him for 3 years until he showed up outside my work one day. He was a completely different person. He spent the last 3 years homeless, traveling, and became your stereotypical hippie. He told me how he knew he had done terrible things and had lived a lot during those 3 years, and it completely changed him. He wanted life, love, and to give back to the world that he once hated and the people he harmed. I couldn't get the thoughts out of my head, but wished him well. And then I went back to work, and after that, never saw him again. One of my friends raped this girl that he was into after she passed out, and apparently wrapped his dick with a plastic bag because he didn't have any condoms. Figures they'd be dating still 7 years later. Meanwhile, none of my rape-free relationships have lasted. I know not just one, but 2 people who soaked a tampon in coffee and stuck it up their ass. There was also the kid who drank hand sanitizer. Not really a friend, but one of my favorite teachers was charged and arrested for child molestation. He was a really enthusiastic guy, did crazy stuff, and everyone in the school loved his class. Everyone told everyone to take his class, and he played Halo, and even had Halo days near the end of the school year where we'd link a bunch of Xboxes in his classroom. He went on hikes and caving adventures with the kids, and even chaperoned a school-sponsored cruise ship vacation. I guess all those activities were what gave him the connection to his victims. I don't really know, but I never suspected anything. He was always just a really cool teacher who actually taught kids something. And then as I got older, I started seeing him shirtless at the local raves giving light shows to kids on E, and I thought that was really weird. I heard he'd been fired to let go from his teaching position under murky conditions. Rumors started spreading that he messed with some kids or something, so everything else about him started to seem weird in retrospect, but he wasn't charged with anything for years, so when he finally was arrested, it didn't come as much of a shock to me. One friend who has schizophrenia and is now in prison for unrelated and unproven charges got into a fight with a grown man when he was less than 14 years old. He was beginning to lose the fight and pulled a screwdriver out of his pocket and stabbed the man to death and fled the scene. He was never caught. I have another friend I used to smoke weed with on a regular basis whose father, that always gave us dirty looks and actually confronted us once or twice about it even though he knew we smoked, had apparently raped a child years before. One of my ex-girlfriends saw fit to tell me after about a week or so of us having sex that her brother used to fuck her for about 7 years. Actually, that's happened with a couple of my girlfriends. Now that I think about it, it seems way too common. I was part of this anime club in high school. One kid who girls liked because of looks fucked his best friend's girlfriend, was in possession of child porn, had a girlfriend with him while driving high, ran over a person, and causing him and his girlfriend to get in a car accident, which gave her a severe concussion that landed her in a coma. He then proceeded to steal his girlfriend's stuff while she was in the coma, and is now apparently hopping trains to avoid the law. My one friend would shit in bags and kept the bags in his water heater closet and would cut the hair of women who fell asleep at his apartment because he thought it was a way of keeping their souls.